Hi there, ladies and gentlemen, and boys and girls. We have a tremendous wrestling card for you today here on All-Star Championship Wrestling, which, of course, features the world's greatest wrestlers.
My little itty-bitty bruiser buddies.
United States heavyweight champion from Brazil. The world's heavyweight champion from the AWA, Nick Bockwinkel.
The Midwest supporting, bruiser loving, positivity spreading, world's most dangerous podcast. Join former pro wrestler and promoter Dave Dynasty as he supports and promotes Midwest pro wrestling. Keep on growing with the Midwest Express. This is the Dave Dynasty Show.
Greetings and welcome to the Dave Dynasty Show. I am your host, Dave Dynasty. Thank you for coming along on this journey for another week. And we got a great episode today, a very special episode today. But before we get into that, thank you. Last week we had our first watch along. I had Mrs. Dynasty on. We watched some old WWE wrestling. Had a lot of fun, and you guys seemed to love it. It was very well received. We thank you so much for the positive feedback, all the support, all the sharing. It's something we're going to do again. It's going to be once a month for now. I might have different people on. I don't know. We're going to watch all kinds of cool stuff from the Midwest. New, old, whatever it might be, but it's going to be fun. We will do more watch-alongs. Thank you for the feedback and everything. Everything we've heard from you on this episode. We really do appreciate it. This episode is a special episode devoted to the Crusher. And last weekend, there was an unveiling of the Crusher statue in South Milwaukee. An event that I was planning to be at and intended to be at, and I had to end up working the old shoot job, as they say, and did not get to make it. I had to cancel. I had hotel book and everything. Had to cancel it all. It was a mess, and it really bugged me. I couldn't be there, but I'm ecstatic at how well the event seemingly turned out. All the reports, there was just to say there was a phenomenal amount of people, great turnout and whatever else. We do have a special report here on the Dave Dynasty Show from Andy Hamerlinck, who was there at the CRUSHERFEST. And he's a guy I communicate with online every now and then, and he was sending me some updates as it was going on. And then he sat down after it was all over, and he recorded a little report to talk a little about it, what the event was like, and everything else. So we have that coming up in just a bit here on this episode. Before we get into our special on the Crusher, let's take care of some of the usual housekeeping business. Remember, go out and check out PowerSlam.tv. They are constantly adding independent wrestling to their streaming service. It is phenomenal. They have well over 100 independent promotions. It's something like over 4,000 hours of programming. And again, that's always growing. So you want to go check this out. There's some very cool events, lots of promotions from all over the world. But the Midwest is very well represented on there. You're gonna get sucked in, and you're gonna get hooked, and you're gonna binge watch independent wrestling in that. And there's nothing wrong with that. Go sign up for that. And as a special here from the show, if you use the promo code Dynasty, you get your first month free. So go sign up and try it for a month and see what I'm talking about. You'll love it. Go do that. Coming up, there's some events you can see me at, see the Dave Dynasty Show at, and events that we will be covering and participating in. Beginning with this coming weekend, June 22nd in Muncie, Indiana for Delaware County Championship Wrestling. They have their Band of Brothers event. Ike and I will be there doing the live streaming and the commentary. So it'll be fun. Headlined by WWE legend Tatanka, who will be there battling Pitbull in the main event for the DCCW title. Great card there. So come to Muncie, Indiana if you're in the area and say hi. We'll be there. Message me, set it up. We'll talk, we'll chat, we'll say hi, we'll take a picture, we'll do all that fun stuff. But if you can't be there, again, look up DCCW Indiana on Facebook, like the page, and watch the live stream next week on June 22nd. And if you can't come to that event and you are in the Indianapolis area, then go to Upstart Pro Wrestling's event, Uprising. They're going to have a great show there also on June 22nd with Ace Perry, Jake Oman, Thunder Kitty, and much more. You can go to uprising.mpt.me for tickets and information. So again, if you can't get to Muncie to see Delaware County Championship Wrestling, then hey, get to Indianapolis and see Upstart Pro Wrestling. A couple other events that I will be covering here in the Midwest. July 6th in Chicago, I'll be covering Major League Wrestling as they do their big event and TV taping and all. I will be there covering that event. And then also on September 7th, also in Chicago, Ring of Honor returns to Chicago, and I will be there covering that event. So there will be some reports and everything else on the social media for the Dave Dynasty Show and here on that show. So before we dive into all the audio clips, we're going to have some classic audio on here talking about the Crusher. We're going to have a couple interviews, again, the Crusher Report, all these different things. We're going to scan very briefly, right, because it's such a huge career that the Crusher had in professional wrestling. We're not going to be able to cover it all, right, but we're going to give you some highlights, some feedback, some cool stuff. But again, let's give you some overview here before we dive into all this. The Crusher was born Reginald Lazowski on July 11th, 1926 in South Milwaukee. Of course, Milwaukee is the town that he made famous, and he is truly a legend there, as the CRUSHERFEST proved here recently. And Reggie, or the Crusher, he passed away on October 22nd, 2005. Now, he early in his life, he played a lot of football. He went to the Army, and in the Army is where he started wrestling. When he came back, he began wrestling here in the Midwest around 1949, primarily in Chicago. Now, Chicago in this era, there was wrestling shows almost every night, right? Because Chicago's a big town. There's all these different neighborhoods and areas, and there was always a wrestling show going on pretty much every night in these different neighborhoods, in these different areas, or whatever you want to call them. And so the Crusher was wrestling, 3, 4, 5 nights a week in these different areas, just traveling around Chicago, as lots of guys were. And that's how he got his start, doing that. And since he wasn't really making a whole lot, and he was very new, he was working, blue-collar jobs, basic jobs during the day. He's a bricklayer, meat packing, all these different things. And then Fred Kohler put him on TV, and by 54, he had really developed this look that he had, and started developing this persona that he had. He really came to prominence as a tag team wrestler with his quote-unquote brother, Stan Lazowski, and they were a great, great tag team in that time here in the Midwest, here in the AWA, or they're in the AWA, excuse me, not here, but where they were heels, and they were a rough and tough team. They started kind of turning the edge. Later, he was known as Crusher Lazowski in this team a lot, and eventually just became the Crusher. Of course, he's probably most known for teaming with Dick the Bruiser, and they really, really, really started getting the fans behind them and turning prominence when they started battling Larry Hennig and Harley Race in the AWA. And again, this is a feud that I really wish there was footage for, but there's really not anything out there. This one has been great. But, on and off for, 2 decades, Crusher and Bruiser teamed. They were truly a pair. They were billed as cousins, but they were made to be a team. And, again, they held the AWA tag titles. They held the WWE tag titles. They held tag titles in Japan. They were a great team, but Crusher also had a lot of single success. In the AWA, he was a world champion there 3 different times. And he also held the tag titles in the AWA with other partners, Vern Gagne, Brad Bastien, Billy Robinson, Baron von Raschke. He was the backbone of the AWA. He was their primary face. He was this guy that was a huge star, a huge draw. And even when he started cutting back on his appearances, or even when he went other places and work, he was always brought back to pop the town, as they say, right? To boost attendance and to boost interest. So Crusher, his entire career, was a huge, huge star. And I think it was because he really resonated with the people, right? He was one of them, right? From Milwaukee, served in the Army, a football player, worked these same jobs that these guys worked. So he could really relate, right? And, he's a beer drinker, cigar chewing, and just really, called her by turkey necks, so on and so forth. So I think people could really, really relate to him, and that's why they resonated. So it's kind of a brief overview of the Crusher. Of course, you go online, you can look up more about him. There's lots of references out there. Look up, pretty much anything associated with the AWA will have Crusher featured prominently, or should at least. So we're going to take a quick little break here, and we're going to bring you all the information on how you can follow the Dave Dynasty Show online and keep up to date with everything we're doing and everything we're covering, and where to find us on social media, and how you can support the show. All that's coming up here, and when we come back, we're going to kick off our Crusher tribute episode with an interview I did last year with Chris Smith, who headed up the Crusher statue movement to get the statue. And this was well before the event. Actually, this might have been closer to 2 years. I don't even know. I have to look back. It's been a while. This was when it was in the very early stages. And this is our talk we have with Chris. And he talks a lot about the Crusher's importance in Milwaukee and how the statue came to be. So let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll have that chat from that past episode with Chris Smith. So stick around. Hey, make sure you visit DaveDynasty.com. That is your central hub for everything within the world of the Dave Dynasty Show. From there, you can find links to follow us on all of our social media accounts. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course YouTube, which you will want to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have lots of classic wrestling, every episode of the podcast, and other exclusive features there. While you're at DaveDynasty.com, check out the links to help financially support the show. That is how we keep this free every week. You can go to ProWrestlingTees.com/The Dave Dynasty and buy a shirt to help us out. PayPal.me/The Dave Dynasty to make a one-time financial contribution. Patreon.com/The Dave Dynasty to make ongoing monthly contributions. Or you can click our affiliate links for Amazon.com and HighSpots.com. No additional charge to you, but it helps us out. Thank you for your support, and check out DaveDynasty.com. Complete your experience, The Dave Dynasty Show. We are now joined by a special guest who is heading up a project very dear to the show's heart. On the line, we've got Chris Smith with the movement to get a statue erected in Milwaukee for the Crusher. Chris, how are we doing?
Good. Thank you for having me on your show.
Absolutely. Tell us a little bit about how this movement, this initiative, how it got started.
Well, I just live in the area of South Milwaukee, and when I think of South Milwaukee, I would always think of the Crusher and think that it was so cool that he lived here, was from here. His, wrestling personality, if you will, was like he was the guy that made Milwaukee famous. He was announced as the man that made Milwaukee famous. And then I realized that there wasn't really anything commemorating him at all. And then I realized that there's really nothing on the WWE network about him. And then I thought there needs to be something so people will remember him, and then just kind of came up with the idea for a statue. In Milwaukee, we have a statue of Arthur Fonzarelli from Happy Days, which was set in Milwaukee, and it seems to be pretty popular, even though it was a little controversial when it first was being created. But I figured if we could have Fonzie, who wasn't even a real person, we certainly can have the Crusher, who was actually, a real person and a symbol of Milwaukee.
That's right. That's one of the bad perks with company like WWE controlling all these video libraries is they get to kind of write the history and put the spotlight on what they want, and oftentimes a lot of guys are overlooked, and especially a guy like the Crusher. I mean, we're not talking a minor player here. I mean, the Crusher was huge. I mean, especially like in the AWA in the Midwest. I mean, he was Hulk Hogan before Hulk Hogan was. He was huge.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. I mean, if you watch his matches and his promos, I put the Crusher in top 5 of all time with the full, the charisma and just the total package. And I don't know what the reason is. I'm assuming that when the WWE, purchased the AWA library, maybe they just didn't have, the digital files of going back that far. They do have an AWA library, but it just doesn't go back far enough to really see the Crusher and Dick the Bruiser, and there's not a lot of Baron von Raschke or any of that. Yeah. And I just, for kids that are young, the younger generation, I just thought, how will they know who this was? Because, like you said, he was a huge deal.
That's right. Yep. And that's not even a negotiable fact. I mean, there's even numbers to back up when Vern Gagne brought in Crusher, the attendance went up, the gate went up. I mean, there are correlations that prove how big a draw, how much, because that's what a lot of guys think. Oh, did he make money? Of course he made money. He was huge. And correct me if I'm wrong. He also has a military history, doesn't he? Of serving the country. Is that right?
He's a World War II veteran.
Yeah,
he's a World War II vet.
Yeah, so on top of his professional life, I mean, there's that side of it too, but it's definitely a cause that my full support's behind. I'm all about preserving wrestling history, especially some of it that kind of slips through the fingers. And as you said, each generation where there's not that exposure, it's lost. Because the weird thing about wrestling is we don't have, there isn't, like you said, a lot of videos not there. There's not a lot of stuff, and because of the kayfabe and the protection in the past, a lot of what we have is just word of mouth, and those guys are leaving us, one by one. So it's a great thing that you're stepping up to help preserve and put a spotlight on Crusher. So you were born and raised in Milwaukee? You're from that area?
Yeah, I'm from that area, and in especially the city of South Milwaukee, which is a suburb to the south. I don't know if I'd really call it a suburb. It's a municipality to the south of the city of Milwaukee, and that's where Crusher lived. He played on the football team. He raised his family there. He stayed there his entire life in the same home. Everyone in this area, it seems when you talk to them, the older generation, like my parents' generation, has a story about him because he, stayed in the community, and all interactions that I've ever heard are positive. People would knock on his door at all hours of the day and night, and he would open it. He never turned down an autograph. He never turned down a charity event that he was asked to participate in. So it goes beyond the fact that he was just an extremely successful and famous wrestler. It even goes beyond the fact that he was a military veteran. He was just a really good human being.
Right. Yeah, and that's another kind of a pitfall of professional wrestling. Sometimes the only stories we hear are the bad ones, of the guys that made mistakes and did these bad things, and that's sometimes gets too much attention, and we forget about those guys that put a positive light on the business. Chris, thank you for joining us. Thank you for doing this for Midwest Professional Wrestling and preserving its history, particularly of the Crusher. We appreciate what you're doing for him and for the business.
Well, thank you so much for having me on your show and spreading the word.
All right, and we appreciate when Chris came on, talked to us about what he was doing, the reason behind what he was doing, and letting us help try to spread the word. Hopefully we had a little bit of an impact on the end results, which was successful, right? The statue is now in South Milwaukee honoring the Crusher. And here recently, this past weekend, the weekend of the, whatever it was, the 7th, and I don't know what it was. Anyway, this last weekend in June, they had the CRUSHERFEST there in June to unveil the statue. Lots of cool guests, lots of cool things. And Andy Hamerlinck was there, and he recorded a little report for us here on the Dave Dynasty Show to tell us about the event itself. So let's go to that now. The CRUSHERFEST report with Andy.
Hey everybody, this is Andy up in St. Paul, Minnesota, reporting on CRUSHERFEST, which happened last weekend in South Milwaukee, the Crusher's hometown. It was a 2-day event. I was just there for the Saturday, which was the day they actually unveiled the statue that many of you probably donated to help make happen. There'd been a 2-year campaign headed up by Chris Smith, who's the city attorney of Milwaukee, to get this thing built. And CRUSHERFEST was the payoff. 13,000 people were there, and it was crowded. They were apparently expecting 5,000. I think 13,000 was the number I read over the 2 days, but, it was just in a small space. It was outdoors in downtown South Milwaukee on Milwaukee Avenue. They ran out of beer at one point. Trucks were having a hard time getting through the crowd. Ran out of collectible cups. So sorry I couldn't grab you one of those, Dave. They sold out of T-shirts within a few hours. There's a banner on hand, which they're using as a petition to get the Crusher into the WWE Hall of Fame. That thing filled up within a couple of hours. So yeah, a ton of people showed up. I think it was a mix of wrestling fans and also people just out in South Milwaukee looking for something to do. They had polka music. They had a ton of food vendors. ODB had come down with her food truck. And they had a wrestling memorabilia tent, which that night they had a couple of wrestling shows. But during the day, they had folks selling gimmicks. So they had, T-shirts and programs, a lot of AWA stuff. The coolest thing on hand was the Crusher's old ring jacket that he wore dating back to the 1950s when he was still wrestling under his original name, Reggie Lasowski. There's actually a Bobby Heenan jacket on display and a couple other really cool items too. Baron Von Raschke was there signing autographs. Jerry Lawler was booked. Never saw him. I don't know if he showed up or not. They had announced that his flight was delayed. He was supposed to MC the actual unveiling ceremony, but wasn't able to make it in time. So the ceremony itself was actually emceed by Chris Smith, the city attorney, which was great because he had the most to do really with making this thing happen. Had some politicians speak, almost lost the crowd, but they were brought back by Kenny the Sodbuster J, who told a great story as always, and Baron Von Raschke, who did basically a 5-minute wrestling promo, and crowd loved it. Crusher's 3 kids were there, including Larry Lasowski, who was a referee in the old AWA days. He had a couple of posters he was showing off from their old 60s AWA Milwaukee posters. And then probably the coolest part of the whole event on Saturday, honestly, was they brought in the old Minneapolis garage band, the Novas. I think all the original members were there, and they played their hit, The Crusher, right as the statue was being unveiled. So, and then, people could take their picture with the statue. A ton of people were doing that. And just overall, it was a great event. And I think, from what I'm reading, they want to make this a regular thing. And I hope they do. It's definitely worth making the sojourn there, whether they have an event or not. The statue, looks great. It's the Crusher holding a keg of beer. There's no stogie. But apart from that, I think they did a great job, both with the statue and the event. So you can look if you want to see more about what went on. I think they had like a polka mass on Sunday, a bunch of other things. There's a ton of media reports from around Milwaukee and Wisconsin. They did a great job getting press there. So, but I had a great time as a fan, especially of old school AWA wrestling, and I'm hoping they do another one next year.
All right, so now that we've covered the CRUSHERFEST and the statue in South Milwaukee, and the reason that the timeliness of this episode we're doing, honoring the Crusher, talked with Chris Smith, give you the background and how we got to the CRUSHERFEST, how we got to the statue in South Milwaukee. Then we talked to Andy Hamerlinck, talking about the event and what happened that weekend. The Crusher's there, right? He's the bronze statue is standing in South Milwaukee. So if you're in that area, go see it. It's very cool. Have your picture taken with it and all that. Now let's look back a little bit on some highlights from Crusher's career. We gave you an overview, talking about it a little bit. We're encouraging you to go out and do the research, to look up matches on YouTube, to read up on the Crusher. But now let's play some classic audio, right? We like to do that here on the Dave Dynasty Show, and there's plenty of it out there for the Crusher. So I've picked some highlights, different things, a couple of promos, a couple of mixtures of interviews and different things. And we're going to start here with one from September of 1966. And this is the Crusher talking about Bruno Sammartino. He's going into Pittsburgh to wrestle Bruno. And he taunts him a little bit, right? And you can see here, it's 66. You can already see that Crusher is in full gear, right? He's in full bloom. This is a very typical Crusher promo. It's entertaining. It's humorous. It is great. It is classic Crusher. So again, it's from September 1966. The Crusher talking about Bruno Sammartino and going to Pittsburgh to wrestle the living legend.
You can just see it now. All my fans sitting in a saloon having a beer now, saying, "Now what's that Crusher up to? Who is that guy? What's Bruno standing next to him there?" Well, I'm glad you recognized Bruno. I was going by a store in Skid Row in Chicago the other day, when I said, "Look at there, there's Bruno sitting in the store." So I went into the store and bought Bruno with me so you can take a good look at him. Take a look at him. The face looks like Bruno, the ears look like Bruno, and the brain inside, the sawdust brain, is just like Bruno. And when I get done with him, I'm going to take my claw hold. You remember the Crusher claw hold. I'm going to stick it in his stomach, move a few spaghettis on his side and meatballs, go up in through that stomach, right up into the head. I'm going to drag all that sawdust out of there. This Bruno caused me to leave Pittsburgh the last time I was there. Pittsburgh was my second home next to Milwaukee. I went for Pittsburgh better than anywhere. All the dolls go for Crusher there, whether they're 4 or 5 years old, 80 years old. Everybody likes the Crusher in Pittsburgh because they don't get a chance to see a real He-Man. Take a look. You didn't see the Crusher's 100 megaton arms for a long time. Take a look and you get that whole camera on them 100 megatons. Take a good look. I suppose about 1,000 dolls are fainting already. Don't give them too much. Pull back. I'll show a little mercy on them today. Crusher's coming back September 10th. I got the cigar store Indian, White Owl, or Goofy Eagle, or whatever his name is. But when I get done with Goofy Eagle or White Owl, whatever you call him, I'm going to stand him right in front of my saloon. I'm going to have that cigar store Indian standing right in front of the saloon there, and I'm going to stick a big cigar right in that big mouth of his, and he's going to stay there and keep his mouth shut, because I heard he's been shooting off his mouth. I'll have him back on a reservation with the squaws, knitting carpets or whatever else they do, knitting handbags with beads, because that bum, when I get them, I'm wiping everybody out. Everybody's getting wiped out. The Crusher is in the best shape of his life. You can see the girlish figure I got right now, that small waistline. I drink the right kind of beer. In fact, I really been training hard. I found a saloon with a bar about 200 feet long. I'd drink my beer on one end of that bar, and before it got down to my stomach, I'd be on the other end of that bar for my other beer. I'd drink that beer. Well, by the end of the night, I can tell you I was in great shape, and I found another bar even longer. So when I come to Pittsburgh, I know there's going to be a big crowd waiting at the airport right now. The band's going to be there, the beer's going to be there, the Polish sauce going to be there. But just take it easy. Wait for the celebration till after I beat this goofy Indian, and then when this goofy Bruno gets in the ring with me, and we can settle back to normal, we'll go right out with the Pittsburgh Pirates, settle the championship of the world. The Crusher, the heavyweight wrestling champion, Pittsburgh Pirates, the baseball champions. We're going to have a lot to celebrate, so don't feel so down in the dumps. Cheer up, the Crusher is back to stay.
Great promo, great talk there from the Crusher, talking about Bruno, again, from September 1966. Now, let's move forward about 12 years, right? The Crusher is already a staple in the AWA. He's a huge star. He's been the backbone there, a guy that has drawn fans and held titles and everything else. And in 1978, he sat down with broadcaster Roger Kent to do a little interview, talk about all kinds of stuff, right? So let's go to that interview now with Roger Kent and the Crusher from 1978.
I'd like to introduce to you right now the one, the only, the wrestler who made Milwaukee famous and wrestling famous, the Crusher. Crusher, good to see you.
Roll out the barrel. A lot of people are going to mistake me for Johnny Cash, but I'm not Johnny Cash. I'm the Crusher.
And the one and the only, and boy, oh boy, I'll tell you, why don't you tell the folks how in the world you got started in wrestling? What prompted you to get into wrestling, Crusher?
Well, I come from the other side of the tracks. My old man ran a working man's saloon. And at 13 years old, he said, "Kid, you've been laying around enough. Come on down to the saloon. I want you to start throwing drunks out of the saloon." So since 13 years old, I've been fighting. I went to college, but the College of Hard Knocks.
Well, I'll tell you, that's you've been in the streets, as you say. I know you've trained very hard. Who has influenced you in your career as a wrestler the most of anyone that you can think of right now?
Well, nobody really influenced me, I don't think, any more than the drunks I threw out of the saloon, my old man making me get in the streets and fight. I'll never forget one time when I was a punk kid. I had to take a can of beer and go to the saloon and get my old man some beer. Well, he gave me 15 cents to go get it. And about 10 minutes later, I come running down the hill, almost blew him right off the porch, and he said, "Hey, punk, where you going? Get over here, you bum." He said, "Where's my beer?" He thought I drank his beer. But I didn't drink his beer. I said, "There's some bum, 350 pounds. I only weighed about 200 when I was 13 years old. Took one to the fight, took my beer away, the money from the beer. He said, "Kid, it ain't the size of the dog in a fight. It's the size of the fight in a dog. Get back up that hill, get that money back, and you bring that beer back down to me." Well, I've been climbing that hill ever since. I went up there, beat the big bum, got my 15 cents back, and brought my own man his beer back.
Well, I'll tell you.
Does that put a tear in your eye? Or what's
just a wee bit, Crusher.
It's a sentimental story.
Oh, that's it. Yes, it is.
About 2 o'clock in the morning when they're closing the bars, it really gets sentimental.
Yeah, they certainly do. You never know what the people are up to. Now, to take and draw a line from Toronto, Canada, all the way across Michigan, Lake Michigan, and straight to Milwaukee. You can practically see it from here. Now, you do your training. You do a lot of training, and I know for a fact, I've been told this by people, that you carry a keg of beer when you do your road work, and you drink beer on your road work.
Well, that's a natural thing. I come from Milwaukee. Everybody knows the breweries are all from Milwaukee. Everybody drinks beer in Milwaukee. From the time I can remember, my old man gave me a beer. They didn't give you no milk bottles. They filled the milk bottles with beer. That's why everybody's so big, and that's why the dollies get so big over there. That's why I'm a polka king, too. I like the polka with a dolly, 250 pounds, 260 pounds. So when I let her go, a lot of times I got to pay for a whole new wall to be put up. She went right through the wall.
You really get into that dancing, huh?
Right, I love to do that polka, but they gotta be nice, heavy, stout girls.
You don't
I had a girlfriend once, weighed 250, went on a diet, went down to 215, I had to get rid of her. Too skinny.
215 was too
skinny,
little for you.
Too skinny.
Oh, you're Polish. You have a Polish background.
That's right.
Say something in Polish to our fine audience here in Toronto.
Well, there's only the main words of any Polish person, especially ones that like to hang out in the saloons and have a few beer. Na zdrowie!
Nastrovia, what does that mean now?
Good luck, good health, whatever you want. Good polkaing.
Do I dare say yakshimash? What does that mean?
That means how are you?
Okay. And I always answer Dubja or something.
Dubja.
All right.
Wszystko w porządku.
What does that mean? I'm afraid to ask.
Everything's okay.
Oh. You know, when you get into foreign languages, sometimes...
They ain't got nothing bad. Everything's good. Good luck. They're happy people.
Well, I know that you're always a happy guy, except when you get into the ring with an opponent and he happens to do something that isn't exactly in the books.
That's right. Not only that, when I'm in a saloon, some bum goose me around, and I get mad, I bounce their heads through the walls, throw them on. You know, I've been in so many fights in the saloons, I don't think anything can hurt me no more. I've been hit with bar stools, bar rags, barmaids, you name it. That's why I go into these matches here. I don't figure I know scientific wrestling. If the guy wants what is scientific wrestling anyhow?
Well, I suppose it's going after you like Billy Robinson uses.
Tear a guy's ear off, nose. That's scientific.
No, that's rather brutal.
Matches, right?
Yeah.
But that's the way I was brought up. I was brought up in the streets, in the saloons. Nobody taught me nothing but what I learned the hard way. And this is the way I've been wrestling all my life. And when I wrestle somebody, I don't like return matches. In other words, I like to hurt and cripple people, so I don't ever have to have a return match. But I don't like to throw the first punch. Unless I have to. I believe in the old motto, do unto others before they do it to you.
Okay. Well, I suppose that's one of the reasons that you have won so many, many matches and are really perhaps one of the best-known wrestlers in the entire world.
That's right. I developed my body once I knew I was going to be a professional wrestler. My old man said, kid, get out there and develop that body. I want to see the muscles bulging. I don't want to see no flab. I want to see. And I sculptured my body. I learned that word in the saloon. Professor taught me that the other night.
Sculpture?
Yeah. What does that mean?
Well, finely toned or hewn is what I'm trying to say.
What's hewn?
Shaped.
Oh. Well, I shape my body that way. Muscle for muscle. I don't have one muscle in my body that I don't have there for a reason. And I use all my muscles, too. That's why I have a 22-inch bicep, a 56-inch chest, a 37.5-inch waist, and I can go on and on. But I did develop my body strictly for professional wrestling.
Now, talking about being in fine shape, I want to compliment you on your attire. You dress very well. You identify so much with the working people. You come from a working background.
That's right.
You're sitting here in a very...
packing houses. I worked in the steel mills. I worked in a glue works. Did you ever work in a glue works?
No, I didn't.
They do to a horse after they don't want him no more?
No.
Well, that's how you paste your letters together. That's how that horse ends up.
And you lick the stamps.
Right. You're licking a horse.
Hey. That's not a very nice thought.
No, but that's just facts of life, and that's why I lived it the hard way. I came up the hard way, and I'm going to end up being a world's champion living the hard way the way I do. And I don't like people knocking me either.
Well, I've heard some rumors going around that There's been a certain wrestler that has been casting out some rather negative comments about you.
Yeah, and I heard about that bum. I've been getting letters that people have been saying, did you hear what this bum been saying about you? I said, no. Well, they told me. Well, I'd shoot up the telephone, shoot up the wire. I was so mad if I could have found a bum, he wouldn't be talking about me now. And you know his name as well as I do. Al Finkel Hayes.
You're talking about his lordship.
You call him that. I got another name that they're going to be playing organ music if I call him what I want to call him. Al Finkel Hayes and that dummy, Super Destroyer, Super Dummy, come over here from England, he says, from his old man's, what do they got, ranches over there or castles?
Estates.
Estates. He was a hedge trimmer over there, trimming hedges, come over here, claimed he was a lord, but we all know the bum, there was nothing but manicure the lawn. Well, I'm going to have him manicure my fingers. He talks about my fingernail being dirty, about me being dirty. I just got a massage parlor. You don't get out of a massage parlor dirty, do you?
No way.
Been talking about my drinking beer, quaffing beer, he says. Going with wenches. Well, I don't like anybody calling my ladies of the evening wenches. And Al Finkel and Super Dummy, I'm coming to... And I'm going to be there soon. And I'm going to be all over you. And I'll guarantee you, when I get done with Al Finkel and Super Dummy, you're going to go back where you come from on the cattle boat that you come over here, not the Concorde.
The one, the only, the Crusher.
All right, great interview there. Very representative of the Crusher in the 70s. We had the promo earlier from the 60s that talked a little bit about, you got a feel for the Crusher in that time. And then there's the interview with Roger Kent to give you a feel of the Crusher in the 70s. And now there's an infamous promo that I'm sure a lot of you have seen and heard. I always crack up every time I see it and hear it. It's actually a little package. There's some comments. This is from October 1986. It's hyping a WWF show going to Milwaukee where the Crusher is going to team with Hulk Hogan against King Kong Bundy and Big John Studd. And this little package here has a promo with the Crusher and Hogan, a promo with Heenan, and then some comments from a local news station and everything else, kind of hyping the event and several other things. Right? This is a whole little package, kind of discussing this whole scenario. But it's always humorous to me to see that in '86 the Crusher still had this drawing power that the WWF was going to bring him in, or did bring him in, when they went to Milwaukee to pop this event. So here it is, this little package of the Crusher teaming with Hogan and WWF from October 1986 in Milwaukee.
And his partner, the heavyweight champion of the world, Hulk Hogan.
Well, once again, Milwaukee, I'm going to have to apologize because I got a little problem with the Crusher here, man. I told the dude, if you train my way first, then I'll train yours. So the first thing I did, like I said, Milwaukee, I got to apologize for taking the Crusher to Gold's Gym, man. Because as soon as he walked in the door, he started crushing the steel-tempered bars, started snapping in half the 200-pound dumbbells, and then he started slapping all the gym members in the back of the head and ran everybody out. But since he went to the gym and trained my way, I guess I'm going to have to hang with him and drink a few brews now.
That's right. I got the trucks ready with the beer. We're all ready to go up and down Wisconsin Avenue. This is the greatest news since the Green Bay Packers had won the Super Bowl. They forgot about it. In fact, we might start playing for the Packers. They don't play any better. We've gone out here to win this whole thing once and for all. Now you got to train my way. So, how about that?
Unbelievable.
Hulk Hogan traded Crusher away. There's no way for you, Studd Bundy. No way out. The only way out is in the hospital, in a crash, in a bomb, out in the river. No way. Hulk, it's like Christmas. Now, let's give our song.
Roll the barrel. One thing I'm worried about. I'm worried about after you drink that beer. You got to be careful on those Harley Davidsons, man.
That's right.
Tuesday, October 23rd.
Some big dollars.
See, last time I didn't make it here to Milwaukee. I had some other business to attend to. And like I told you, Crusher, you were never going to announce my name and the word weasel at the same time. I knew what you planned. And I outsmarted you, didn't I? Come on, dummy, admit it. I outsmarted you. But now History's been made. I've gone from coast to coast, border to border, and all that anybody's talking about is wrestling, the unification of the Hulk and the Crusher. Unheard of in wrestling history. They never thought the Hulk and the Crusher would be together. Nobody ever thought that the Crusher and the Hulk would get in the ring together as partners. I don't like the sound of it either. But everybody seems to be buzzing all over the world. Now, Crusher, you've even got this poor excuse for a world champion walking around smoking cigars. He's got you on Harley Davidsons driving up and down Milwaukee. He's got you sipping suds now. Your faces are full of foam. You're both doing the polka day and night. You're dancing with dollies and barmaids and bar rags and this and that and this and that. I'm sick and tired of hearing about the Crusher. When he was 13 years old, he went up a hill with a pail of water to get his dad a bucket of beer, and some guys worked him over, and his dad kept sending him back until he became a man. I'm sick and tired of hearing about your beer, your polkas, your cigars, the stinking city of Milwaukee, and everything else. And to top that miserable cake off, I'm tired of hearing about Hulk Hogan. Well, then let's finish it here in Milwaukee. Let's stop it right here on the 23rd and do it right. Let's do it with 800 pounds of wrestler. And I'm talking about Stud and Bundy. Because don't forget, Hogan, you were put in the hospital once before by King Kong Bundy. Crusher, you've been sewed up a lot, but I don't know if you've ever been hospitalized, but I'll guarantee you something. I suggest Milwaukee General get a room with 2 beds and a TV, because both of you can share that room at the hospital, and then on Saturday watch TV, because I'm still going to be standing here with Stud and Bundy without beer and no cigar.
Milwaukee tonight. And so was King Kong Bundy and the Crusher and Big John Studd. And you thought the most important visit of the day was President Reagan's? Anyway, John Gillespie was there tonight to witness Hulkamania.
Close to 9,000 rabid wrestling fans packed into the Milwaukee Arena tonight. They were here to see their heroes. The big names on the card included world champ Hulk Hogan, his arch enemy King Kong Bundy, and Milwaukee's own The Crusher. Pro wrestling has really caught on in the past year on a national basis. Why? Well, listen to King Kong Bundy.
Well, you know, that's a very good question, John. I'm glad you asked me that. You know, the answer is right in front of you. People like King Kong Bundy, people like the giant Big John Studd, and even people like Hulk Hogan. You know, you watch baseball, you watch football, you watch great athletes. But you come back to professional wrestling, you see the greatest athletes of all.
Now, King Kong Bundy off camera is rather soft-spoken. That leads me to believe that this whole pro wrestling deal is fake, just pure entertainment.
I've had every bone in my body broken. I've been stomped on. I've been hit with bar stools, bar rags, barmaids. But I'm still here. It's the roughest stuff. We have no pads like the football players. What you see is what you get.
Get that thing out of my face. There's always going to be some timid little wimp, kind of like you, talking about professional wrestling being that. I'm not even going to mention the word. But anytime anybody wants to get in the ring with King Kong Bundy, all they got to do is say the word.
Perhaps one of the more enticing aspects of the world of wrestling is listening to the pros being interviewed and listening to how they continually threaten each other.
And as for that Crusher, everybody in Milwaukee loves the... Get that thing out of my face, boy. Loves the Crusher. You know, but King Kong Bundy, I show no mercy for no one.
Tonight they brought the Weasel with him. Bobby the Brain, the Weasel. And I'll tell you right now, if that Weasel interferes in that match, we're going to be singing our favorite song. The Crusher chased the Weasel around the ring post, and when the Crusher catches the Weasel, pop goes the Weasel.
From the Milwaukee Arena, John Gillespie, News 4 Sport.
Oh, again, that package, I chuckle every time I hear it. I don't know why. It's the Crusher so synonymous with the AWA that thinking of him doing this WWF appearance, it just humors me. But again, so there we've hit the first 3 decades, right? We've hit the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and now here we're going to wrap this up, our last little piece here on this Crusher tribute episode, with something from May 1998. It is from Milwaukee TV, the station, I believe the callers were WITI, and this is a little story they did on the Crusher, kind of a retrospective, a look back, a kind of a reflection. Again, this is from May 1998, so the Crusher's days are done in the ring, and this is but he's still, again, they did this in Indianapolis with the Bruiser, in the 80s, again, though, the Crusher in Milwaukee is a famous name, still has a lot of appeal, a lot of draw power. So this news station, they did this little TV story on him, on The Crusher from May 1998.
I go,
Not much has changed. He's still, quite simply, The Crusher.
I build up the 1,000 megatons. And they're still ready to explode. And who knows, I might jump in the ring Sunday night yet.
When a crush gets done with a bum, he don't come back for seconds.
As the World Wrestling Federation finally honors the wrestler that made Milwaukee famous,
They know what it is now to bite an ear. They know what it is to get an eyeball. They know what it is to kick you into some parts that don't feel so good.
looking back on the multi-time world champion wrestler, it's really the character of the man who traveled the world but never let Milwaukee out of his heart.
But the big thing is some of the greatest matches in the world were held right here in Milwaukee. I was part of them, Crusher Country. And me and the Mad Dog, I remember having cage matches where people were trying to crawl back in the ring and try and help us. Milwaukee fans are real loyal fans. Most of them are working class people. They know I was one of them. I worked in the Ford shops. I worked in the packing house. I laid brick. I did everything, and they know I was one of them.
And as we look on with wide-eyed amazement on his legendary tag team partner, Dick the Bruiser, and his record-setting times in the steel cage, as nasty and even bloody as it got, the Crusher was always about a good time.
Now, the Crusher isn't just some character he came up with. In fact, he's opened the door over the years for a bunch of raspy-voiced wrestlers and turkey necks. But you got to wonder what he would do with some of these pretty boy wrestlers that we got today.
Well, I know they're turkey necks, they're trying to copy me. There's a lot of turkey necks out there, and I eliminated them, a lot of them out of wrestling. We wrestled whether we were hurt or not. I mean, nobody cared whether you were hurt. You had to get in that ring. Otherwise, you wouldn't get paid. So I went in that ring I had my arm broken 3 times and never knew it. It's been a great life, and I wouldn't change it for nothing. And all the 200-pound dollies, they still want to do the polka.
And though 40 years in the business may have slowed him down a bit, the Crusher will always be Milwaukee's champion.
If you were looking for the best books, DVDs, and posters on classic wrestling nostalgia, then you want to visit crowbarpress.com. There are literally dozens of titles there, including biographies of the likes of Bruiser Brody, Ole Anderson, Ivan Koloff, and of course, Dick the Bruiser, as we've spoke about here on the Dave Dynasty Show. You want to visit crowbarpress.com for all of your classic wrestling nostalgia needs. Again, that is crowbarpress.com. All right, so there you have it, right? We're closing up this Crusher tribute episode. Again, I cannot stress the importance of the Crusher in professional wrestling, especially here in the Midwest, especially to Milwaukee. I'm so ecstatic that the statue now stands in South Milwaukee. The Crusher Fest was such a success, and that the Crusher is eternally recognized now, where people can come and they can see and they can pay tribute. It's such a cool thing, and I hope we see more of these things throughout the world, right? Throughout the U.S., honoring these guys for their contributions to their communities and their towns, for what they accomplished, and get the respect they deserve. So this is a very cool thing. And again, with the success of Crusher Fest, we've been supporting this whole movement since the beginning, trying to help rally people to it. With the success of it and the statue standing and the success of the event, we wanted to have a little Crusher tribute episode here, and do our part. So hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure you support us by subscribing and give us ratings and reviews wherever you listen to our show, especially if it's on iTunes. But make sure you share all of our episodes, but particularly this one, right? Let's help spread the word, continue to spread the word in the name of the Crusher. So share this episode wherever you can with all your friends on social media. And again, you can follow us on social media by going to davedynasty.com. That's a central hub. You heard the plugs earlier. We're on all platforms, so check us out. And you can support the show, help keep us free. You can buy a shirt by going to PROWRESTLINGTEES.com/TheDaveDynasty. You can make a single financial contribution to the show at PayPal.me/TheDaveDynasty, or you can make ongoing monthly contributions at Patreon.com/TheDaveDynasty. Every bit helps. Just a few bucks help. It helps keep this show free, helps keep us going to the events, helps keep our equipment going and everything else. So we do appreciate it, right? We give you this show for free, and everything we do, right? There's no charges. So we depend on your generosity and your support. So please help out. I know a lot of you guys, a lot of people they think to support the independent promotions and the independent wrestlers, and you continue to do that. But don't forget some of your media guys out there that are doing this stuff, your podcasts and everything else that are out there supporting this product and helping with this stuff. And every now and then, throw us a bone too. We appreciate that. So that's all we have for this week. We will be back next week with another episode of the Dave Dynasty Show, and we're going to close it out today. After I finish up here with the only way I know how on our Crusher tribute episode, we're going to close it with the song The Crusher by the Novas. So stick around and give that a listen. It's a very cool song that you'll want to hear. So stick around, give it a listen. But until next week, be good, be safe, and keep on growing.